Welcome back, folks. Get comfortable because this story is going to blow your mind. I'm talking about small-town drama, power-hungry HOA bullies, and one ranch owner, me, who refused to bend the knee. If you've ever had run-ins with nosy neighbors or power-tripping HOA presidents, you're going to love this one. It all started about a year after I moved out of the city. I'd spent nearly 2 decades grinding at a high-stress job in finance, barely seeing the sky except through my office window. After my dad passed, I realized life was too short to spend in a cubicle. I sold my condo, cashed in my savings, and bought a ranch property way out in the Texas countryside. Picture this: 70 acres of rolling pasture, a sturdy farmhouse, with a wide wraparound porch, a big red barn, and enough peace and quiet to hear yourself think. I didn't move here for drama. I moved here for freedom. No neighbors peeking over fences, no constant traffic noise, no HOA boards trying to tell me what shade of beige my front door should be. I'd been burned by HOAs before, back when I lived in a subdivision where they fined me for having my trash cans visible from the street. I swore I'd never live under that nonsense again. That's why I made sure, triple sure, that this property was not part of an HOA. My land was mine, and nobody was going to tell me how to live on it. Or so I thought. The first sign of trouble was a letter. It wasn't a friendly welcome note, no plate of cookies from a kind neighbor. It was an official-looking notice, stamped with a fancy logo, and addressed to me. "You are in violation of HOA landscaping rules," it read in big, bold letters. I remember laughing out loud. HOA landscaping rules? I wasn't even in their neighborhood. I figured it had to be some clerical error, a letter meant for somebody else. I tossed it in the trash and didn't give it another thought, until a week later, when I found another letter, this time taped to my front door. This one was more aggressive. It warned me that I had failed to comply with HOA standards and that I was being fined $500 a day until I brought my property up to code. It also said, "Further enforcement action will be taken." I stared at that letter for a good minute, my coffee going cold in my hand. Was this a prank? A scam? Or was some HOA president seriously trying to boss me around from miles away? I called the number listed on the letter. A woman answered, her voice sharp and smug. "This is Linda, HOA president," she said, like she was announcing herself as royalty. "Hi, Linda," I said, trying to stay calm. "You've made a mistake. My ranch isn't part of your HOA. I live out on County Road 11 a few miles away from your subdivision. You don't have jurisdiction here." There was a pause, then a chuckle. "Oh, we know exactly where you are. That land was part of our community plat map years ago, so technically you're still under our HOA jurisdiction. It'll be easier for you to comply than to fight us." I blinked, stunned. "Ma'am, this is private property. You don't own a square inch of it. Now take me off your mailing list and don't contact me again." Then I hung up. I figured that would be the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. A few days later, I was woken up by the sound of tires crunching on my gravel driveway. I looked out the window and saw a white pickup truck pulling up, with 2 burly men inside wearing matching polo shirts with the HOA logo. One had a clipboard, and the other was holding a crowbar. That sent a chill down my spine. I threw on my boots and headed outside. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" I called out. The guy with the clipboard smirked. "We're here on behalf of the HOA. You've been warned twice. We're here to start bringing your property up to code." "Up to code?" I said, my voice rising. "This is my land. You're trespassing. Get back in your truck and leave." The other guy, the one with the crowbar, puffed out his chest. "Look, buddy, we're just doing our job. You cooperate, this'll go easy." I realized these weren't contractors or landscapers. They were muscle. Linda had actually sent goons to intimidate me into complying with her HOA rules. I gave them one more chance. "You've got 5 seconds to leave." They didn't move. That's when I went back inside, grabbed my shotgun from the rack, and stepped back onto the porch. I didn't point it at them. but I held it firmly enough to make my point. Now you've got 10 seconds. 10, 9. By the time I hit 6, they were scrambling back to their truck, gravel flying as they sped down my driveway. I thought that would scare them off for good. I underestimated Linda. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was her. "How dare you threaten HOA representatives? That's assault!" she screeched. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "if I wanted to press charges, I could. I've got them on camera, trespassing on my property, one of them armed with a crowbar. If you want to involve the police, let's do it." There was a long pause, then a huffy, "You haven't heard the last of this," before she slammed the phone down. I knew then that I couldn't just wait for her next move. I needed to fight back. The next day, I went down to the county records office. I spent hours digging through plat maps, property records, and HOA documents. Sure enough, my ranch had been legally severed from that subdivision's HOA decades ago when the land was sold off. I wasn't under their control, and Linda knew it. She was bluffing, trying to bully me into submission. But I wasn't done. I compiled all the documents I found, printed them out, and made copies. Then I took the footage from my security cameras, showing the 2 men trespassing with a crowbar, and filed a trespassing complaint with the sheriff's office. A week later, a deputy called me. "We've served them with a warning," he said. "If they step foot on your property again, they'll be arrested." I figured that would settle it, but Linda wasn't one to back down easily. Over the next few weeks, I got letters threatening lawsuits, phone calls at all hours, and even a random car parked at the end of my driveway watching my house. It felt like harassment. Finally, I decided to go on the offensive. I hired an attorney and had him send a cease and desist letter to Linda and her HOA board, outlining every law they'd broken, from harassment to trespassing. We even threatened a countersuit if they continued. That was the final straw. A few days later, Linda herself showed up at my gate, this time alone. She wasn't wearing her usual smug grin. She looked defeated. She apologized, muttered something about misunderstandings, and promised to take me off the HOA's mailing list. I didn't say a word. I just stared at her through the gate until she turned and left. From that day on, I never heard from Linda or her HOA again. My land stayed mine, my ranch stayed peaceful, and those so-called enforcers never dared come near me again. The whole ordeal taught me a valuable lesson. Bullies, whether they're HOA presidents or hired muscle, back down fast when you know your rights and refuse to be intimidated. So to anyone out there dealing with HOA harassment, remember this: you don't have to take their nonsense lying down. Do your homework, stand your ground, and don't let anyone push you around on your own land. Thanks for sticking around for this wild story. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, subscribe for more HOA drama, and drop a comment below about your craziest HOA experience. Who knows, your story might be the next one we tell.